Brand disclaimer. The views and opinions expressed on this platform by individuals, callers, or invited guests are their own. The information you hear does not reflect the overall views of all parties associated with the brand. We encourage everyone to research all things heard live or via archive for edification purposes. Discretion is advised.
Help keep the show on the air. If you want to help, you can send your donation through PayPal. The email is debatetalkforyou@gmail.com or through Cash App, $Sal Showtime. Thanks for your support.
Okay, Shabbat Shalom, everybody that's on. Once again, this is another spiritual food. This is Bridging the Gap. This is a segment where we try to see, can we come together with an understanding from different perspectives? Can we talk about it, dialogue about it, and see, is there something we can come up with where we can like get on one page to some degree? So that's why this segment of spiritual food is called Bridging the Gap. About a year ago, I was doing a show with Brother Yahukanan and Brother Pacroseeno came on, and I was going over Daniel's chapter 7. He had a different perspective on Daniel's chapter 7, and we was talking about it about a year ago, I think it was. At that time, the brother said that he wasn't fully, I guess, prepared for the conversation at that time. So it's a year later. We'll see if the brother is prepared to have the conversation, so we can talk about Daniel's chapter 7, and we can see our understanding on it, and we can go from there. So again, before I begin, I got to give all praises to the Most High God, the Holy One of Israel, the Ancient of Days, Yahweh, his name in Hebrew, which means I am, he is, or calls us to be. And we pay homage to his first begotten son, Hamashiach, Yahweh Shai, Christ Jesus in English, which means anointed Savior or anointed salvation. And as our brother Jude pushed it in his letter, for us to contend for the faith that was once delivered to the saints. Shout out to our brother Sal for the platform, all the moderators on Debate Talk for You. Everyone in the chat, again, Shabbat Shalom. Without further ado, let me bring in Pacroseeno from the Rumble Room. Shabbat Shalom, brother.
Hey, Shabbat Shalom. I observe lunar Sabbath, but with respect to those who observe the seventh-day Sabbath, Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom.
Is there anything you want to say to the people before we begin, brother?
Well, I don't know. I was Gay Bar reached out to me and said that someone wanted to talk about what was spoken of about a year ago. I don't really recall saying that I wasn't prepared. I don't really recall what that statement was about, but somebody said they wanted to revisit the topic. I thought I said all that was needed to be said. But with respect to all those who would like to hear the argument again, welcome. I hope I can provide some sort of lead, some sort of understanding for the rationale for those who believe that the four captivities are represented in Daniel 2 and 7. I understand there are contrarian views. So those who would ever encounter someone who is who doesn't believe or who is skeptical about the four captivities being represented in Daniel 2 and 7, I invite you to give hearing to my ideas, and hopefully you can take away something, and hopefully it's an edifying discussion.
Okay, thank you for that, brother. Let me bring in another brother. This brother here possibly going to read for me. Let me bring him in, my brother. Brother Shuri, Shabbat Shalom, brother.
Shabbat Shalom, bro. How you doing, Up?
Tada. Doing good. Yourself?
Oh, I'm well. Well, brother. Well, brothers. And I can't see the brother's name.
That's brother Pacroseeno from the Rumble Room, Biblical Rumble Room.
Shabbat Shalom, Mark.
Shabbat Shalom, Aki.
Okay, sure. You want to give an intro, or you good? You done?
Yeah. I'm actually. I felt like I was a little late, so we had we prayed in already over here. I had to get the house straight and kids situated. So um, I didn't get the alert until later. So, but yeah, um, we are on Streamyard tonight, right?
Yes.
Okay. All right. All right. All praises. All
All right.
praises.
All right. We're gonna get started then. What's going to happen is that I'm gonna kind of give my take on the situation on Daniel chapter 7. Then the brother gonna come behind me and give his take. We're gonna go have a dialogue back and forth. If I say something, Pacroseeno, that you need more understanding on it, or you're not clear on what I'm saying, you can cut me off and kind of have ask me the question to explain exactly what I'm saying there, and vice versa as well. If I'm hearing you say something that I'm not quite clear on what you're saying, I'm gonna cut in and ask a question to get some clarity on what you're saying. At the end, I'm going to put the link in the chat, and anybody can come on and ask us any question on our understanding of Daniel chapter 7 and other places we're going to go in the Bible. Pacroseeno, are you fine with that?
That sounds good with me. That sounds good with me.
Okay. Without further ado, I understand the four beasts in Daniel's the 7th chapter to be speaking of four beasts that's in our future. Those beasts there has not emerged yet on the scene. These are four different beasts, diverse from the beasts of the Greco-Roman, the Romans, the Babylonians, and the Persian and Medes. So these beasts, as I understand it, from the eighth chapter of Daniel, are completely different beasts. So they're different kingdoms. They're not the same kingdoms because they are different animals. And I've not read anywhere in the Bible where the book refers to a kingdom by two different animals. It always refers to whatever kingdom is referring to as the same animal consistently in the Bible. So as far as me telling you what those four beasts, what kingdom represent those four beasts today, I couldn't tell you because they're, as I understand it, they're in our future. They have not came on the scene as of yet. As they emerge on the scene, and we correlate what they do with what the book says, that will be how we'll be able to identify them once they feel the characteristics of what it says about that particular beast. Once it starts to happen, we can clearly see that the fourth beast is speaking of the Antichrist comes out of the fourth beast. We know the Antichrist is not even on the scene yet. So, I mean, there is no way that beast could have came already, because he comes out of that particular beast. And if he comes out of the Roman Empire, then you have to identify who is the Antichrist, this little horn that comes out of the Roman Empire and saying all this other stuff. So that's just briefly how I understand it. And then I'll let the brother go and give his, and then we can start to dive into it and get more technical about why I'm saying what I'm saying. Just give you us a brief intro why I'm saying what I'm saying. And I'll turn it over to the brother Pacroseeno to give his brief intro, then we'll start diving into it. Pacroseeno?
Sorry, wasn't gonna go next, or
No, it's you.
Okay. All right. So I am of the persuasion that in Daniel chapter 7 it highlights a captivity time. It highlights a kingdom transfer timeline. From the Israelite perspective, it is a captivity timeline. So we're talking about the timeline, a sequence of kingdoms that will rise until that will rise and fall, four particular kingdoms. And then after the fourth kingdom falls, okay, the fourth kingdom will be subdued in Daniel chapter 7, and we see in Daniel chapter 2, there is a Messiah figure that that comes and subdues the fourth kingdom and hands the kingdom, the dominion, hands dominion over to the saints. Okay, we see this sort of parallel story in both Daniel chapter 7 and Daniel chapter 2. So when we are reading Daniel chapter 7, we are reading the dream given unto Belshazzar. And Belshazzar was one of the last, I think he may have been a regent for his father. If we study Babylonian history, he's not listed as a king, but in the Bible he's listed as reigning. But he was the grandson of Nebuchadnezzar II, who received the dream in Daniel chapter 2. So in Daniel chapter 2, you see the dream of the rise and fall of kingdoms of dominion over the earth to Nebuchadnezzar II. And in Daniel chapter 7, you see the dream given to his grandson, Belshazzar. So that's why that's just the narrative. That's my argument. And there are various other parallels. You see four kingdoms in each of the dreams. You see their rise and fall, and you see the eventual subduing of the last kingdom and handed over to the saints. Now, from the Israelite perspective, I believe that the Israelite remnant are the saints. When we have the subduing of the fourth kingdom by this Messiah figure, I submit it lines up with the captivity and liberation narrative that we find in Deuteronomy 30:1 through 10. We in various prophets, such as Micah, and I believe in Micah 7 and Amos 9, Zechariah 14, Malachi chapter 3, Jeremiah 33. This narrative runs consistent throughout the prophets. I think Daniel is no different. And I believe that this vision was allowed to fall into the book of Daniel. It ended up in the book of Daniel because the creator wanted it there. And I submit that it is another piece it serves as another witness to Israelites, past, present, and future, to look forward to their liberation. And I guess we can sort of figure out the rest later, but that's pretty much just the overview. Yeah.
Okay, well, with that, let's get into it. Let's deal with one beast at a time. So let's start with the first one. Shuri, can you get Daniel chapter 7, starting at verse 1? So
did you want to like read the chapter, or read it for your audience? Because I'm not sure how familiar they are with the whole chapter. Well, maybe do a blank read through, or just a dry read through.
I just want to, we can do that, you know what I'm saying? But I wanted to just, if we can deal with one beast at a time, you know what I'm saying?
Okay. All right.
Yeah, we do one beast at a time so they can get the understanding. We can just, sure, you got Daniel chapter 7, verse 1? Yeah, go ahead. So I'm going to deal with one beast at a time. I'm going to give my take on the first beast. And then after that, you can come behind me. You can explain why you think it's Babylon. So then we'll dialogue about that. And then we can go on to the next beast. All right, go ahead, brother.
Daniel chapter 7, verse 1. In the first year of Belshazzar, king of Babylon, Daniel had a dream and visions of his head upon his bed. Then he wrote the dream and told to the sum of the matters.
Okay, so we see this is the first year of Belshazzar, which is the last ruler that was reigning in Babylon. He is the last. He's the last one. Okay. Um, and Daniel had a dream. He says, and a vision of his head upon his bed. And Daniel wrote the dream, and he told the sum of the matters. Okay, so the timeline here is that we're at the end of the Babylonian Empire. This is the last king, is when he's getting this particular dream and vision, as it says. Okay, go ahead, brother.
Verse 2. Daniel spake and said, I saw in my vision by night, and behold, the four winds of the heaven strove upon the great sea.
So he saw the four winds strove upon the great sea, which would be the Mediterranean Sea. Go ahead.
And four great beasts came upon the sea, diverse one from another.
So he saw four beasts. They're different from each other, and it was coming out of the Mediterranean Sea. It's the great sea that he's referencing here. Four of them coming up out the sea. Coming up out the sea, as I understand it, is them coming on the scene. Not that they have already came on the scene, but he's seeing them coming on the scene. And again, this is at the end of the Babylonian Empire. Is one point where I see that it's not speaking the Babylonian Empire, because the Babylonian Empire is getting ready to fall. We're in their last king already. So I don't see him having a dream or vision of something that's future. I said to be future, but yet he's getting it at the end of the first kingdom. He should have been getting this either at the beginning or even prior to the beginning of the kingdom rising up on the scene. He should have been getting this, because that's how prophecy works. It operates and gives you something that has not transpired yet. But we're already in the Babylonian Empire at the end of it, and he's seeing this beast coming out of the sea. This beast is one of them that people say is Babylon. It's why I don't see that it's Babylon, because of the timeline of when it was given to him. Go ahead, brother.
The first was like a lion and had eagle's wings. I beheld till the wings thereof were plucked, and it was lifted up from the earth, and made stand upon the feet as a man, and a man's heart was given to it.
So people read that and they equate it to what happened to Nebuchadnezzar when he had lost his mind for 7 years and so on and so forth. But the text is letting us know that these beasts is an empire. It's speaking of the entire empire, not just the king of the empire, but the entire empire is what these characteristics are referring to. And some people break it down and narrow it down just to the king, but it's clearly speaking of the entire empire, that the empire had wings as eagle wings. It was a lion that has eagle wings, and the wings there was plucked off, and it was lifted up from the earth and made to stand up on his feet as a man, and a man's heart was given unto it. So at some point, the empire lost its manly, its lion kind of characteristics, and it kind of got kind of docile, and a man's heart, or meaning a man's mind, was given to this particular empire. So that's my understanding of the. Let me get one more. Let me get Daniel chapter 8, verse 1.
Daniel's chapter 8, verse 1.
Wait, you know what? Hold on, Shuri. Hold on one second. No, that's it, because that's going off into the next beast. I'll come back to that. I'll come back to dealing with that and with the next beast. That's my understanding of the first beast, that it's something in our future. I don't see how it lines up with the Babylonian Empire, because the timeline of the vision does not match. So with that, I'll turn it over to Pacroseeno. Pacroseeno, you there?
Sorry about that. I forgot to hit the unmute. So in response to your breakdown of the, everything you said, that's fine that you believe that, and I respect that as your view. But just voicing some differences I have with that is, as far as the Great Sea, I mean, it could be the Mediterranean. It could, you know. I don't think I don't think it necessarily has to be. I think it's a vision, and visions are visions. I mean, visions can have a specific location, right? Like it's like in Ezekiel 37, right? The valley of the dry bones. Like where really is the valley that the dry bones are lying in? Like, is it Israel? Is it somewhere else? Or is it just really in that dream? Does it represent a place where Israel, a low place, a valley is a low place, a hill is a high place? You know, we see the bones sort of dried up in the valley, so it sort of represents, you know, Israel in its destitute state at its lowest point and coming to life. So when we're speaking about Daniel, the Great Sea in Daniel 7, I don't necessarily think it has to represent the Mediterranean, but even if it did, it would really kind of speak to the place that I think it really kind of complements the idea that these four beasts represent the kingdoms that arose to enslave Israel, because all of these nations sort of surround the great beast. And so, but that's really all. Like, there's no hard stance that I have to that I'm going to take with regards to the specifics of the way the beast is described. I'm not going to speak where I'm not inspired to speak. So what each symbol stands for, like, I mean, to me, it would just be sort of speculative to sort of say what I think that they mean. But I take a more top-down approach. The context, the sequence of the number of kingdoms, the sequence, you know, of events, they sort of tell me what each beast means in relation to Israel. So, I mean, I'm basically, that's all I say. All that to say that I'm not really going to provide any contention or any dispute on what the symbolism or the specifics of the beast means. I hope I haven't disappointed you in that, but yeah, that's all I had to say on that.
Okay, you do believe that beast is the Babylonian Empire, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And you're gonna tell us why you believe it's the Babylonian Empire?
Well, I just did. I just did. I did in the opening, and I just did right now.
Okay. All right. Let's go on to the next beast. Shuri, you there? Okay.
Are we back in 7, or what are we doing?
Daniel chapter 7, verse 5.
Daniel chapter 7, verse 5. And behold, another beast, a second, like to a bear, and it raised up itself on one side. It had 3 ribs in the mouth of it, between the teeth of it. And they said unto it, arise, devour much flesh.
Okay, so this is the beast where it is understanding they have is this is speaking of the Medio Persia empire as a bear. And I disagree. Again, I don't think this is speaking of the Medio Persian Empire whatsoever. And this is where we now go to Daniel, the 8th chapter. I'm gonna give my reason why I'm saying this is not the Medio Persian Empire, because again, the 8th chapter is going to speak of the Medio Persian Empire again as a different beast. Okay, so can you get Daniel's chapter 8? See Daniel, the 8th chapter, starting at verse 1.
Verse 1. Daniel chapter 8, verse 1. In the 3rd year of the reign of King Belshazzar, a vision appeared unto me, even unto me, Daniel. After that which appeared unto me at the first,
So he has another vision again, but this is in the 3rd year of Belshazzar. Okay, so in the 8th chapter, I mean the 7th chapter we read, that was in his 1st year. He received that vision, and then he received another vision in the 3rd year of the same king, like the one he had received at the first. Speaking of Daniel chapter 7, verse 1. Okay, jump down to verse 5.
Verse 5. And as I was considering, behold, and he goat came from the west on the face of the whole earth, and touched not the ground. And the goat had a notable horn between his eyes.
I'm sorry, brother. Verse 3. I mean to get verse 3. Verse 3.
Verse 3.
Yes.
Then I lifted up my eyes and saw, and behold, there stood before the river a ram which had 2 horns. And the 2 horns were high, but one was higher than the other, and the higher came up last.
So this is speaking of the Persian Median Empire, which is symbolized here as a ram, which has 2 horns. One horn was higher than the other one, and the higher one came up last. All these characteristics here that this thing is speaking of here fits the Medo-Persian Empire to a T. The Medo-Persian Empire, if I remember correctly, their national symbol was a ram, and one of the horns was taller than the other one, and the strongest one came at the end. The strongest of the 2 of the Persian and Medo kings was the strongest one, came up last. So everything we see here is fitting the Persian Medo Empire to a T. All right. Go ahead.
Verse 4. I saw the ram pushing westward, and northward, and southward, so that no beast might stand before him. Neither was there any that could deliver out of his hand. But he did according to his will, and became great.
So all of that happened to the Persian and Median Empire. They moved to the westward, northward, southward, and with no one to stop them. Nothing could stop them, and they became real great. Okay, so all of that transpired and took place that fit the Greco-Roman Empire to a T. So here they're referred to as a ram, and in the 7th chapter, this beast is referred to as a bear, and this bear had 3 ribs in his mouth, and it's said to rise and devour much flesh. So those characteristics there does not fit the Persian and Mede Empire at all. So that's my contention, is why I'm saying it does not fit. For one, it's a different animal, and for 2, the characteristics of that bear does not fit the Persian and Mede Empire, because their national symbol was not a bear, it was a ram. If I remember correctly, I think it was a ram. So that's my contention why I'm saying that it is not. So with that, just keeping it real brief, with that, I'll turn it over to Pacroseeno to give his reasons why he think otherwise.
I'm particularly interested in hearing your whole analysis of the Persian kingdom being the goat. Not that I would disagree with it, but I'm really interested in hearing you go forward from verse 4 all the way through to 12. I'm not sure if you feel comfortable in doing that right now, but I mean, I just figured since you had gone the length to go to Daniel chapter 8, maybe you could provide that. If you don't, no problem. I'll also say this. Let's grant it that that the ram does represent the Persian kingdom. Let's grant it for a moment. I don't see why both can't be the Persian kingdom. I mean, just because of difference in visions. You got in Daniel chapter 7, we're seeing a vision given to Belshazzar in his first year of reign. In Daniel chapter 8, we're seeing a vision given to him in his third year of reign. So we're talking about two totally different visions given at totally different times. This is not a continuous vision wherein like I could see like if the vision in 7 and the vision in 8 were given at the same time, I could see how one could be like, well, that really kind of complicates things, because now you have the same, one would be positing that the same kingdom is being described in two different ways as two different beasts in the same dream. But what we're actually seeing here in the Bible, in the book of Daniel's prophecy, are two different visions given at different times. One in the first year of Belshazzar, the second in the third year of Belshazzar. So I don't see why they necessarily have to be two different kingdoms. But it seems like you have maybe some sort of take. You really sort of get kind of granular with it. Like you really down to the detail. You have sort of some ideas on why in particular it is the Persian kingdom. And I was particularly interested in hearing you go forward from verse 4 all the way down to verse 12.
I can do that.
Okay, cool.
All right, Sherry, let's pick it up from where you left off at. Daniel chapter 8, you in verse 5.
5, come.
Yeah.
Daniel chapter 8, verse 5. And I was considering, behold, nope. Is that 5 or 6?
5. You're in 5.
Verse 5. And I was considering, behold, a he-goat came from the west on the face of the whole earth, and touched not the ground. And the goat had a notable horn between his eyes.
Okay, we can stop there. So again, I'm just going to do a quick recap. So again, the ram again is symbolized as the Persian Mede, and found today, and even in ancient and you look at ancient Persian coins, that's what you see on the coins is the ram. The king, I'm going to look into my notes, and the king also wore a ram's head of gold. The ram's head can be seen in sculptures and pillars all over the Persian and Mede Empire as well. Just giving a recap, just giving you more detailed information on the particular ram and how it relates to the Persian and Mede Empire. I mean, all these things can be fact checked and looked at and confirmed to be so. Verse 5, and then as he was considering, behold, and he-goat came from the west, okay, on the face of the whole earth, and he touched not the ground. So we're showing you how swift he was moving. He moving so fast that he wasn't even touching the ground. That's speaking of his swiftness. And the goat had a notable horn between his eyes. And I'm going to let the Bible explain that particular thing. Go ahead.
Verse 6. And he came to the ram that had two horns, which I had seen standing before the river, and ran unto him in the fury of his power.
Go ahead.
And I saw him come close unto the ram, and he was moved with choler. He was moved with choler against him, and smote the ram, and brake his two horns. And there was no power in the ram to stand before him, but he cast him down to the ground, and stamped upon him. And there was none that could deliver the ram out of his hand.
Okay, so this he-goat came, and he was moved with choler, right? He was moved with hatred against him. So he had an issue with him. and that's why he moved against him, because he had some kind of ill will and hatred towards him, and the text tells you what he did with him. Go ahead.
And he came.
Verse
Excuse
8.
me. Verse 7.
Verse 8. You're in verse 8.
Oh, verse 8. Hold on one second. Okay, verse 8. Therefore, the he-goat waxed very great, and when he was strong, the great horn was broken. And for it came upon, and for it came up four notable ones toward the four winds of heaven.
So we see again, this clearly fits Alexander. Okay, so the he-goat waxed very great. So he had conquered the known world by the time he was 33. It says, to the extent of his conquest. And at the height of his power, and it says that when he was strong, is this the height of his power? His great horn was broken. Okay, and for it came up four notable ones towards the four winds of heaven. So we see that when that happened, that his kingdom was split and given to his four generals. All of that fits perfectly within history. All right, go ahead.
Verse 9. And out of one of them came forth the little horn, which waxed exceedingly great, toward the south and toward the east and toward the pleasant land.
Okay, so out of one of Alexander's general, which will be Ptolemy, okay, out of that particular general line, they came out of a little horn, which waxed exceeding great. Now, but do you have your apocrypha with you?
I do. What? Give me a second.
Okay, because if not, I can go ahead and read it. We need First Maccabees chapter 1 verse 10, which speaks of this little horn. It talks about him. He comes out of the Okay, while he's doing that, I'm gonna come to the Apocrypha. I'm gonna read First Maccabees, and I'm gonna read
I got it.
You got it?
Yep.
Okay, just First Maccabees chapter 1, start at verse 1, so we can understand the transition from the Persian and Median Empire into the Greco-Roman Empire. So First Maccabees chapter 1, start at verse 1.
First Maccabees chapter. Wait a minute. Oh, sorry, just a second. First Maccabees chapter 1, verse 1. And it happened. Oh Lord. Am I right?
No, First Maccabees chapter 1, verse 1.
And it happened after Alexander, son of Philip, the Macedonian, who came out of the land of Shittim, and smitten Darius, king of Persia and Medes, that he reigned in his stead, the first over Greece.
Okay, so he smitten them, and this was the battle of Arbela. You can Google this. The Battle of Arbela is Arbela. You can Google the Battle of Arbela. This is where Alexander conquered Darius, king of the Persians and Medes, and that he reigned in his stead. He was the first over Greece. So this is a transition from the Persian and Mede Empire into the Greco-Roman Empire. Go ahead.
Verse 2. And made many wars, and won many strongholds, and slew the king of the earth, and went through to the end, and went through to the end of the earth, and took spoils of many nations, in so much that the earth was quiet before him, whereupon he was exiled. Exalted. He was exalted, Salakia, and his heart was lifted up.
So that's pride. So that's at the height of his power. Now we see here that at the height of his power, when he became strong, we saw that he got prideful. Okay, and that's his downfall, because he got prideful. Go ahead.
And he gathered a mighty strong host and ruled over countries and nations and kings, who became tributaries unto him.
Go ahead.
And after these things he fell sick, and perceived that he should die. Wherefore he called his servants, such as were honorable, and had been brought up with him from youth, and parted his kingdom among them while he was yet alive.
Okay, so we saw here that's what happened. He got prideful. His great horn was broken, as we read in Daniel chapter 8, verse 8. And now he perceived that he was going to die. He fell sick, and he knew that was something that was going to take his life. So he departed his kingdom while he was yet alive, to these men who was brought up since he was young. He was youth. Okay, and he divided it. He divided it to them. He didn't have no notable a notable heir that can take the throne. So he decided to give it to a man that was able to take control of his empire and do something better with it. Go ahead.
Verse 7. So Alexander reigned 12 years and then died.
So that was a brief reign, 12 years. Okay, then he died. Go ahead.
And his servants bear rule, every one in his place.
Okay, so Alexander's 4 generals, Cassander, Lacemeus, Ptolemy, and Seleucus. Those are the four generals. Again, Cassander, Lacemeus, Seleucus, and Ptolemy are the 4 generals that divide up the kingdom. Cassameus ruled Macedonia in Greek in the west. Lacemeus rules Thrace, Asia, Basiorus in the north, and Seleucus ruled Syria, and Babylon, and parts of and Media, and Ptolemy took Egypt and Libya. Okay, so I gave you the generals and the parts of the world that they took and occupied after Alexander. All right. Jump down to verse. Continue to read verse 9.
Verse 9. And after his death, they put crowns upon themselves. So did their sons after them many years. And evils were multiplied in the earth.
Go ahead. Now here is the little horn. Here's the little horn that came out of one of them, as you read in Daniel chapter 8, verse 9. And the little horn waxed exceeding great. This is the little horn here. All right, verse 10.
And there came out of them a wicked root, Antiochus, surnamed Epiphanes. Okay, Epiphanes, son of Antiochus, the king, who had been an hostage at Rome, and he reigned in the 137th year of the kingdom of the Greeks.
Okay, so we see this. So this is the little horn. And Antiochus, meaning this is the Antiochus, the fourth. This is the fourth one, not the first one. This is the fourth one that came out. Antiochus meaning withstander, and Epiphanes meaning the illustrious. Okay, so this is the little horn that came out. I don't want to read too much about it, but we know what he came and did when he came and down and started dealing with the when he came to the pleasant land. As we read, can we get Daniel chapter 8 verse 9 again? Daniel chapter 8 verse 9 again.
Daniel chapter 8 verse 9. And out of the one of them came forth a little horn, which waxed exceedingly great, toward the south and toward the east and toward the pleasant land.
So the pleasant land we know is the land of Israel. So when he came unto the land of Israel, okay, Go ahead.
And it waxed great, even to the host of heaven. And it cast down some of the host and of the stars to the ground, and stamped upon them.
Okay, so he waxed even to the host of heaven. Okay, I don't want to get deep into that, but that's again speaking about the nation of Israel. I can go into the book of I think it's Judges that talks about them being that. All right.
Okay, just for clarity, Ahmayan. So you previously said that the horn that waxed great was Ptolemy, and now you're saying it's Antiochus. Is that a correction or?
Wait a minute. Say that again. I understand. You say that again.
Previously, before we went into Maccabees, you said that the horn that waxed great from the he-goat was Ptolemy, and now it seems like you're saying it's Antiochus Epiphanes. Am I understanding the correction, or because I don't have a problem if it's a correction?
No, I never said it was Ptolemy.
Okay, you may want to review the recording. I heard Ptolemy, but that's fine if you think it's Antiochus. And for you to say that it is Antiochus makes perfect sense because he was the one who destroyed the temple and he sacrificed and he waxed great. That's perfectly fine.
I'll go back and listen again, but I don't remember me saying that it was the great horn. I remember the great horn, the notable horn. I would say that was Alexander, but the little horn, I was speaking of the fourth beast and that horn that came up. I was speaking of that one. That's the Antichrist. I don't remember me mentioned as the little horn being the first general.
Okay, that's fine. You could verify or deny what I'm saying by reviewing the recording, but it's okay. It's perfectly fine. So when you're saying that when he's in these verses, in verses 9 through 10, this is referring to Antiochus Epiphanes. Okay, am I correct?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm understanding you correct. Okay, that's fine. Okay.
Okay, go ahead, Keith.
Verse 11. Yea, Yea, he magnified himself even to the prince of the host, and by him the daily sacrifice was taken away, and the place of his sanctuary was cast down.
Okay, so we know that when he came into the pleasant land, this is exactly what he did. Okay, go ahead.
And the host was given to him against the daily sacrifice by reason of transgression, and it cast down the truth to the ground, and it practiced and prospered.
Right. So by reason of transgression and violation of the Torah, it had cast down the truth, meaning the Torah. He cast down the Torah to the ground because they could not keep Torah. It was against the law for them to keep Torah. It says and it practiced, and you had many Jews that practiced lawlessness, and he had prospered for a time. Okay, we can read about that. I want to stretch it out, but you can read about that in First Maccabees, chapter 1, verse 41 to 43. It kind of details because of the transgression and cast down the truth to the ground, meaning the Torah. Okay, so again, that's First Maccabees chapter 1, verse 41 to 53, details that particular situation there.
I mean, if we go further into when Gabriel explains the dream to Daniel, we can easily see he explains it. It says in verse 20, it says, the ram that I saw the horns of the kings of Media and Persia. The rough goat is the king of Grecia, which is Alexander, and the great horn that between his eyes, the first king. Okay, so I mean and then he says now that being broken, whereas four stood up, four kingdoms shall come out of that nation, but not in his power. So Gabriel's proving what you're saying is correct. And I don't have a problem. I don't have a problem. I just wanted to hear you break it down. And I think it would have been I think it was helpful for your listeners to hear the full scope, to get that on record. But I mean, you don't have to. I mean, it's your show. But I just thought it was I thought that was really beneficial for the record, and I was interested in hearing your breakdown of it. But as far as like, I'm not gonna argue against Gabriel's confirmation of what you're saying. You know what I'm saying? So we can go back to this Daniel 7 narrative, but
Okay.
just to I didn't want you to belabor yourself excessively. When you know.
No problem. I would just, because you said you want me to go into verse 12, so I was going to stop there. And
Okay, perfect.
So,
Perfect.
You go back to Daniel chapter 7, jury. We're at Daniel chapter 7. I think now we're at verse 6.
Daniel's chapter 7, verse 6. After this I beheld, and lo, another like a leopard, which had upon the back of it 4 wings of a fowl. The beast had also 4 heads, and the dominion was given to it.
Okay, so the third was like a leopard, right? And it had wings of a fowl, and the beast also had 4 heads, and dominion was given unto it. Okay, so again, some trying to understand this to be when Alexander died and his kingdom was split up into 4. That would be the 4 heads of this beast right here.
What verse is this?
Verse 6.
Okay. Yep.
It's verse 6. So some interpret that this leopard to be with the 4 heads to be when Alexander's kingdom had split up and given to his 4 generals. And if you understand, this beast is beast. They got the same body, but they got 4 different heads. We understand that Alexander's general, they didn't get along, especially Seleucus and Ptolemy. They was constantly fighting each other. They didn't see eye to eye at all. You know what I'm saying? So, but this particular beast, it had 4 heads, but they had something in unison. They had the exact same body.
So if I'm correct, are you saying that this beast in verse 6 is not the Grecian Empire?
Yes, I'm saying this is not the Grecian Empire for one.
Okay.
The Greek Empire is representing as a rough goat, and this is a leopard. There's 2 different animals again.
Okay.
So, the characteristics of this particular beast having wings will represent something that's swift. And as we see, those 4 generals, nothing is said about them when they were spoken about that they have any kind of swiftness to them. They were just constantly, it zeroes in on 2 of them, really, on Seleucus and Ptolemy. That's what the Bible really kind of talks about those 2, and they constantly fighting each other, but nothing about them being swift, going around conquering other lands, because the other land was already really occupied by the other 2 generals. So they was only really fighting for their particular portion of land against each other. So I don't see where the swiftness of the wings would fit them at all, and their dominion, but they was only fighting each other. They kept losing. One kept winning, and then the other one come back and win again, and it's like it was a back and forth thing with them, where one would win and one would lose. So no particular one really got the dominion for a long time, just for a really short time, till the next son king will rise up and then gather his bigger army and come attack him and take him down. So I don't see how this leopard really fits those 4 generals. So with that, I'll let Pacroseeno give his take on it.
If I could just provide some interjection. So if we're looking at the beast in 7:6, and so you said that they didn't move with any swiftness, but when we look at chapter Daniel 8, we see that the he-goat came from the west and on the face of the whole earth and touched not the ground. So it didn't even touch the ground. A goat is a 4-legged animal that walks the earth. So if I'm looking at that language in verse 5, it says, "And touch not the ground." I'm looking at it that it actually did. I mean, just to provide some pushback against what you're saying. I mean, ultimately, I'm not going to like die on this hill, but like it's not like a hill I'm willing, like I'm not really. It's not that big of a deal to me. But just to provide a little bit of pushback, like it does say that it didn't touch the earth. So if I'm reading that language, if a goat's doesn't touch the earth. I'm wondering why it's not touching the earth. Like it doesn't have wings. So if I'm thinking like I'm thinking that like the chapter 8, verse 5 actually does describe some swiftness. Like I said, it's really not a big deal. I would say that, for Alexander to have conquered all the land that he did, like you could actually look this video up on YouTube. Like he conquered a lot. He there's a reason he's called Alexander the Great. I mean, we're talking about Greece, almost all the way into Russia, all into the Central Asian landmass, and we're talking about the all the kingdom that the Seleucid Empire. He took over a very his kingdom goes all the way from Israel to India, all of Iran, like that. Like we're talking about modern day Afghanistan. Like there's a reason why those people are like have like stringy hair. We know that was previously the lot of Shem, and Shem is a black people. And if we read according to the prophets, specifically Jeremiah, we can see that. And if we look in history, at a certain point in time, there was a descent of all of those northern peoples. And I think we can look to the Persian, the Median invasion, right? The various waves of the Median invasion, but even after that, you had the Grecians. When a country invades another country, they colonize it, essentially. And so they bring in waves of people to sort of express and demonstrate power in different ways: commercial power, military power. Solomon did the same thing. Back in Kings. And I think even Hiram, the king of Tyre. This is just what kings do. This is what America did, right? Americans came to this landmass, and they brought waves of people from Europe over time, and they just sort of mixed with the people. Romans did the same thing in North Africa, and the Muslims, with the Islamic invasion, the Turkish invasion. So, if we think about just the whole, just what Alexander did and what he left to his 4 generals, he left a lot of land. And I forgot to mention Egypt as well. So I mean, there's pushback. There's room for debate on that. How fast the Grecian Empire came to its sort of its golden age.
Okay, well, here's my pushback on that.
Mm-hmm.
Going to what you're saying, this beast in Daniel chapter 7 verse 6,
mm-hmm.
This beast comes up with 4 heads already in it. Now, when you reference Alexander as a he goat, that goat has 1 head, doesn't have
mm-hmm.
4 heads already from the start. So, if people you at some point you would have to equate those 4 heads to the 4 generals. So if this beast is already coming out with 4 heads already, this particular empire has 4 leaders already, according to what it is saying. So, but the Greek empire did not start off with 4 heads; it started off with just 1, Alexander. Then later on, it divided up. But when it divided up, it separated. It did not remain one body. They got different portions of land. So if the pushback to you, if the pushback you pushing back to me is the saying is that this particular leopard would represent the Greek because the rough goat was moving so fast he didn't touch the ground, and this leopard here had wings like a fowl, and it represents speed, and that would be how you are equating it. My pushback, you would then have to equate that the rough goat started off with 4 heads. And if you can't do that, then you cannot correlate the two correlate those 2 things there at all, because that wouldn't fit, because they're definitely different beasts based on them having heads.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I'm saying that it's not the same thing, because you have to line it up. You know what I'm saying? But
So,
I do see your point of what you're saying about how there is swiftness there when it comes to Alexander. Yeah, I do agree with that.
So when you think of Antiochus, when you think of Cassander, when you think of Ptolemy, and when you think of Seleucus, what empire do you say that they represent?
What empire they were? What empire they're Greeks.
Right. So they represent a divided Grecian empire. Is that correct or no?
Yes.
All right. So even if we go to the vision of the ram, we see Alexander is, I mean, because this is, and I'm only doing this to sort of like to say that I think when we sort of like get down, when we sort of how do I say, focus sort of too much on the like, so what I'm positing is that in verse 6, even though that leopard has 4 heads, it's still represented by the Grecian Empire. How, like, and Alexander sort of represents the he's sort of the he's the harbinger of that Grecian Empire, right? But ultimately, it ends up in 4 of his generals, his death, and 4 generals in power. That's how it ends, right? In the same way, when we look at, well, maybe not in the same way, but when we sort of focus on numbers and we try to hold numbers, like it even breaks down in, then that rationale sort of breaks down when we look at the rams, because the he goat, I'm sorry, represents the Grecian Empire, the rough he goat, and the first king, right. So we know that the he goat represents Greece, and the horn that arises is the first king, which is Alexander, right? But when we look at the 4 notable ones, they're not even represented as the animal. They're represented as the 4 winds, right? 4 winds of heaven. And the vision calls them 4 notable ones towards the four winds. Right? Therefore the he goat waxed very great, and when he was strong, the great horn was broken, for it came up 4 notable ones toward the 4 winds. So I mean, we can even call it, 4 notable horns. It doesn't really call them horns. It says 4 notable ones, right? So, like, is it part of the goat? Is it not part of the goat? Whether it is or it isn't, like, on the face of Scripture, it doesn't even look. It says just 4 notable ones. It doesn't call it 4 notable horns. I mean, that's fine even if we concluded that. That's fine. But it says four notable ones toward the winds of heaven. I mean, in keeping with like a position of skepticism, we can say it doesn't even say horns. Now, I know power is represented by horns, so that's fine if we, at the end of the day, we conclude it. But like, my point is, it's not like it says there's 4 goats, and it doesn't really say, if it says 4 horns, let me stand corrected. But in verse 22, so verse 21 of 8, it says, and the rough goat is the king of Grecia, and the great horn that is between him. So the beast, the he goat, is being described as the king of Grecia. It says the great horn is the first king. So when I look at that, it like I'm fine with. I mean, I have to be fine because it's specific. It's specifying that the he goat is the Grecian king. If I'm saying the first king is Alexander the Great, like, to me, I'm thinking, like, when I read about this he goat, like, it's just fine enough for me to represent that the he goat represents the Grecian Empire. Then it says, now that being broken, the horn being broken, whereas four stood up for it, four kingdoms shall stand up out of the nation, but not in his power. So I don't know. Am I erred in my understanding, or feel free to correct me. I'm just like to me it's whether the beast in Daniel chapter 7:6, that's whether who's who, like it. I understand that that this beast, this leopard with four heads, is the Grecian Empire. And obviously Ptolemy, Cassander, Seleucus, and Antiochus are generals, emperors that represented the divided Grecian Empire. So I don't know. I'm just gonna put that on record. You can respond to it. You don't have to respond to it. We can move on. I'm not here to make too much of a stink, but just to sort of defend my understanding of the four beasts in chapter 7. I don't think it has to like. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I'm saying my pushback is that this leopard starts off with four heads. It's not four heads late. It doesn't, something happened and then it divided, and then it was, this is how it starts off according to what we're reading here. It comes out of the sea with four heads already. You know what I'm saying? So, but we know in Alexander's kingdom there was not four heads in the beginning, with just one. It became four heads later, but it's just years later. Like he reigned for 12 years, we read in the Apocrypha. So that's afterwards, you know what I'm saying? So, but again, this leopard starts off that way. And again, the reason why you can't equate it, because according to the historical evidence, the goat was the national symbol for the Greeks, right? So if for you, as I've proven before, the Persian and Median Empire, the ram is their national symbol, and now we're seeing that the Grecian, their national symbol is the goat. So we see a pattern here developing of these kingdoms, these animals being talked about them, that was their national symbol. So you would have to go ahead and at some point equate a leopard to this particular kingdom in some way, shape, form, or fashion. You know what I'm saying? If you can equate nothing about a leopard to this particular kingdom, there is no way you should be able to, you can equate it to the Greek Empire, even when it first started owning and divided. When it doesn't fit when it was there, except for the point that you brought out about how it being swift, which I wouldn't argue that point at all, But again, afterwards, once it divided up, they never took on that particular symbolism in anything that they did. They kept it to a goat. You know what I'm saying? They named a city after that, and different things. So that would be the ultimate pushback I would have, is that you would have to equate something that they themselves dealt with the leopard in their kingdom.
So is it a sort of a rule of prophetic reasoning that you adopt when you see an animal in a vision and it represents a power like that? Like, is that something you look for within history? Is that something that necessarily has to be there all with every prophecy?
Yeah, I mean, if the Bible is calling it that particular animal, then something about that animal is going to be the animal characteristics is going to have, that kingdom is going to exhibit the characteristic of that animal. Like when Christ was on the scene, and he talked, I think he called him a fox. And you look up the fox characteristics of how a fox moves when deceiving, that fits how Herod was operating. So when the Bible calls people animals, you can go look at the animal characteristics and you can equate it to wherever he's calling that to, that they're going to exhibit those traits. You know what I'm saying? At some point.
Okay, so does that mean we'll find a fox on any of like Herod's coat of arms or any sort of archaeological evidence? Is that something that you found before?
I would say characteristics of the animal. If you can't find anything specifically as a some kind of national animal or coat of arm or coins, then you would then look at the characteristics of the particular animal, and then you would see why it's being called that. he's being called that.
Oh, okay, because you said what you said in regards to the prophecies in Daniel is that because um because the ram is represented as a national symbol in Persia, and because you say that the goat is a symbol for national symbol for Greece, then that necessarily makes like, is that something you like? Like it just like, for instance, some would say well, it's kind of difficult because you don't believe Rome is the power. We don't have to get caught up on this hitch. I'm really just sort of just testing your belief.
I'm just saying
I think
the pattern. I'm just saying that there's a pattern there, that the Persian and Mede, and then right after the Greek, and we see that these kingdoms right after each other has these particular national symbols. So I'm just saying that I see a pattern there when it comes to those two.
And you're saying it complements your argument.
Yes, it complements my argument because
that's fine.
Yeah.
You know what? I think we can continue with the beast. I think I'll be able to provide more dialogue as we get towards the end of this prophecy. Right now, focusing in on the details of the beast, I'm not really going to be able to getting into the details of each beast. That's not where my argument really starts to connect to scripture. Like when we start to look at the whole of the chapter, then it's like, like I said before, mine is more of a top-down approach. When we look at the number of beasts, when we look at the sequence of events, then my argument starts to sort of like, I'll be able to provide more input. But I'm just sort of trying to understand where you're coming from.
Okay, all right, we'll continue then. All right, you go ahead, brother. Read verse 7, Daniel 7:7.
Daniel 7, verse 7. After this, I saw in the night visions, and behold, a fourth beast, dreadful and terrible, and strong exceedingly. And it had great iron teeth. It devoured and brake in pieces, and stamped the residue with the feet of it. And it was diverse from all the beasts that were before it. And it had 10 horns.
So the fourth beast, as we see here clearly, it's dreadful, it's terrible, it's strong exceedingly. It has great iron teeth. It says it devoured and break in pieces. It stomped on the residue with its feet. It was diverse from all the beasts that were before it, and this particular beast had 10 horns. Now, when you read about the Roman Empire, when Daniel was breaking it down to the king, it from the statue, that particular part of the statue was iron, but then the feet had iron mixed with clay. It was partly weak and partly strong, so it had some weak elements to it there as well. But this particular beast, nothing here is mentioned of any weakness in this beast whatsoever. Everything you read about it, that this beast is strong, and stomped the residue with his feet and all the different things. It mentions nothing here about it having any kind of clay or weakness in it whatsoever. And it also mentioned that it also has 10 horns, which is nowhere mentioned with that statue's lower portion at all whatsoever. So I don't see how this beast right here, even though it doesn't say what this beast even is, how can we be created? Go ahead.
Well, there's more to be said about the fourth beast, because the vision goes, it mentions the fourth beast, and then it goes into the Ancient of Days, and then the Son's kingdom. But then when Daniel starts to break it down in verse 15 to verse 28, then you really start to see more, and you actually see that there is, if I recall correctly, there is some conflict within that kingdom. You have one horn subduing another horn. One horn subduing verse 24, 10 horns out of the kingdom or 10 kings that shall arise, and another shall rise after them, and he shall be diverse from the first, and he shall subdue 3 kings. So you see conflict within that kingdom. So so in response to there being weakness in verse, and this is why I think that a read through of both chapters is beneficial for the listeners, because then they can make their decision. You have your view, I have my view, and there's some things we're going to agree on, some things we're just not going to agree on. But I think the benefit of this dialogue is to inform readers so that they can make an informed decision for themselves. And I think that it really kind of shortchanges the conversation when we don't read Daniel chapter 2, especially if I'm positing that there is a connection. Because in chapter 2, and I apologize to the viewers for this, because if you haven't, I'm speaking to the viewers, if you haven't read Daniel chapter 2, it's going to be difficult for you to jump back into Daniel chapter 2 and catch up on what I'm saying. So I advise everybody to just kind of do a read through of Daniel chapter 2. But right now, in Daniel chapter 2, I'm gonna make reference. It says that the kingdom sort of subdues the earth, and it mingles itself amongst the people. But it doesn't quite mix. So there's some conflict. There's a forcing of a dominion, of a sovereignty, and it just doesn't come together. And it suffers the fate of most other kingdoms. Most kingdoms eventually they wane and they fragment and they dissolve, and other more and different powers rise. Splinter powers rise up amongst them, and they all compete for power until the next one is given dominion. But we see that in Daniel chapter 7, in this fourth beast, there is conflict, there is weakness, because they're not able to hold the kingdom together, and ultimately it's subdued. So it's made weak eventually. But yeah, that's the only. We can continue reading through the whole chapter so that point could be borne out in our reading, or not. It's up to you.
No, we're gonna read it through. I'm gonna read all the way down.
Okay.
I'm gonna read all the way down. I'm gonna read all. I was just giving my take on that particular verse 7, but I was gonna continue to read down.
Okay.
All right, go ahead, brother.
Verse 8. And I considered the horns, and behold, there came up among them another little horn, before whom there were 3 of the first horns plucked up by the roots. And behold, in this horn were eyes like the eyes of a man, and a mouth speaking great things.
So it goes on to speak about the horns, and then another horn, a little horn, came up, before whom 3 was plucked up by the roots, it says. And then goes off into this little horn, and it had eyes like man, and he had a mouth speaking some great things. This little horn, okay. Go ahead.
I beheld till the thrones were cast down, and the Ancient of Days did sit, whose garments was white as snow, and the hair of his head like pure wool. His throne was like the fiery flame, and his wheels as burning fire.
So he beheld until the thrones rulerships was cast down, and the Ancient of Days did sit, right? And it goes off into, so he was, I guess at some point he was standing, and then he sat down. Whose garment was white as snow, and his hair like the head like pure wool. So it's describing the Ancient of Days, the Most High, as having woolly hair. His throne was like the fiery flame, and his wheels as burning fire. So he's completely surrounded by fire. The throne is just on fire. There's fire all around it, as I'm understanding this verse now. Go ahead.
Verse 10. A fiery stream issued and came forth from before him. Thousands and thousands ministered unto him, and 10,000 10,000 times 10,000 stood before him. The judgment was set, and the books were open.
So this reminds me of Revelation, the 20th chapter, the great white throne judgment. So thousands ministered unto him, and 10,000 times 10,000 stood before him. That sound like the people who are resurrected in the second resurrection, the dead that rose up, that didn't rise up in the first resurrection. This seems to be here the 10,000 times 10,000 that stood before him. The judgment was set, and the books were open, as we read in Revelations, and they would judge all of those things written in the book. So I understand this verse here as equating to the end times in Revelation, the 20th chapter. So that's why again I kind of push these four beasts here at all the way at our end, because we see language here in the 10th chapter that's pushing us all the way into our future. And that's why I can understand these four beasts in the 7th chapter is speaking to something in our future, because I see language here that will correlate with that, especially here in verse 10. We can go on. Go ahead, brother.
Oh, can I provide? Oh, and I'll wait. I'll wait till verse 12 and then I'll provide.
Okay. All right. Go ahead, brother.
Daniel chapter 7, verse 11. I beheld then because of the voice of the great words which the horn spake. I beheld even till the beast was slain, and the body destroyed, and given to the burning flame.
So again, now we know that the horn is referenced as the beast. All right, and that goes back to Revelation chapter 19, 17 to 21. He talks about how that the beast was taken and he was cast into the lake of fire, him and the false prophet that was with him, and cast into the lake, into the flame. So this verse here remind me of what happened to the beast, because he called the beast here again. So again, it's still pushing, the language again is still pushing in our future what's happening. So the horn is now here identified as the beast, and he's cast into the flame, the lake of fire, as it says in Revelation chapter 19, verse 17 through 21 tells us this. All right, go ahead.
Verse 12. As concerning the rest of the beasts, they had their dominion taken away, yet their lives were prolonged for a season and in time.
So now this verse here speaks of the other three beasts, that's there. So this verse is letting us know that these other three beasts, they just had their dominion taken away, but they were not destroyed, or they were not wiped out, or they were not no more in existence. Their just dominion was just taken away. It says, yet their lives were prolonged for a season and a season. So this verse to me is like the dagger when it comes to someone equating those four beasts to the ones in the past, because those four kingdoms in the past, they ruled in succession after the one. They never ruled at the same time. But this verse seemed to be specifically letting us know that these four kingdoms is on the earth at the same time, and they're ruling a particular section of the earth. And whatever section that they was ruling or had dominion over, that dominion was taken away from them, but their lives, meaning the kingdom being continuing existing, that was prolonged for a season and a time. I don't see where once the Persian and Mede came on the scene, the Babylonians was not continuing as far as them having dominion, having any kind of a particular part of the land that they kind of stayed in. They was taken down and killed and stomped upon. And not to say that every single Babylonian was just destroyed, but as far as their any kind of them ruling any kind of thing to continue, or having any kind of oversight over any portion of land, in other words, that was not prolonged for a season and a time, as I understand it. Once the kingdom came in and took them down, it took them down, and then that was it, and so on and so forth with all the other kingdoms afterwards. But this verse seemed to be saying that at least 3 of these beasts was still around at the same time, and the lives were prolonged. So with that, I'll turn it over to the brother to give his take on it.
Sorry, brother. I can wait until verse 14
Okay, go ahead, brother.
just to finish the vision.
Verse 13. I saw in the night visions, and behold, one like the Son of Man came with the clouds of heaven, and came to the Ancient of Days, and they brought him near before him.
So this is going back now. Once the Messiah had finished his ministry on the earth and died and resurrected and gave commandment to his apostles and so on and forth, and he ascended up. They brought him to the Ancient of Days, the Most High, and then he was allocated, given. They brought him before the Most High. Then go ahead, brother.
And there was given him dominion and glory, and a kingdom that all peoples, nations, and languages should serve him. His dominion is an everlasting dominion, which shall not pass away, and his kingdom that which shall not be destroyed.
So the Messiah was given rulership, everything, everlasting dominion. His kingdom is not going to be destroyed. It's not going to pass away. But this conversation here, as I understand it, doesn't stop here. This particular event doesn't stop here. As I understand it, it continues in Psalms 110. After this particular situation, after Christ is given this dominion and kingdom, the Most High tells him that I'll sit on my right hand till I make your enemies your footstool. And that's particularly where he's at presently. Is that he's been already promised to get these things because of what he did. He's now sitting at the Most High's right hand, waiting for his enemy to make his footstool. So that's where this particular event or conversation here we're reading continues in Psalms 110 and goes all the way down to what he's going to fulfill once he returns. And then I see coming back here to Daniel, the 15th chapter again, and then we can continue the conversation from there. But the conversation kind of switch over to Psalms 110, and then we can bring it back to Daniel's 15. And with that, I'll turn it over to Pacroseeno.
Okay, appreciate it, brother. So in this passage, Daniel chapter 7, verse 9 through 14, we see that we are sort of given this heavenly vision wherein the Ancient of Days, the Creator, is sort of giving his blessing to the Son of Man, the messianic figure, and we don't necessarily see the only interaction this messianic figure we see in Daniel chapter 7 is between him and the fourth beast. I'm not given any indication that the fourth beast are there at the same time. But if anybody is familiar with our first conversation, if we are to presume a connection between the second chapter of Daniel and the seventh chapter of Daniel, we can see that there is a rise and fall of kingdoms. Brother Ahmayan obviously disagrees, but just so that people understand my understanding of this of this narrative, my understanding is not that the beasts are on the earth at the same time, but they are sort of given. They're kings of the earth at given moments in time. And so let me see here. As concerning the rest of the beasts, they had their dominion taken away. So the dominion of each was eventually taken away. But we know that by the vision in Daniel, we'll read towards the end of the chapter that the Son of Man subdues this last kingdom, this last beast, this fourth beast, All right. So if we go to verse 13, it says, I saw in the night visions, and behold, one like the Son of Man came with the clouds of heaven and came to the Ancient of Days. I want to step back a little bit before you mentioned something interesting. I'm going to come back to this verse right now. When we're talking about judgment, the end of days, it's my impression that during the tribulation, the remnant, all right, in Daniel chapter 7, we see the residue. All right, this residue we find out later. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, this residue that he's stamping the residue of Israel. All right, and so we see that the beast in tribulation is allowed to take some of the lives of Israel. We understand that there is a 2/3 that is going to fall in the tribulation, and the 1/3 will be preserved. And so there is a judgment, and all the marking and the sealing of the foreheads, that's done while Israel is within tribulation. It's not after they've died. This is what we're talking about. What we're talking about tribulation. We're talking about the tribulation of the earth, and if we read in Revelations, when the earth is going into tribulation, that's around the time that the Most High begins to rescue Israel from their trouble. Okay, and so the remnant is going to come out of the tribulation, and we understand that some of the Gentiles will also be preserved through it to serve Israel thereafter, and and so all the judgment that's happening, the Most High, it's my understanding that the Most High is judging currently, and those who are condemned, they sort of lose their lives. The Most High decides who dies an early death, who lives out their full days in peace. And judging by their behaviors and their actions, he could trap you. You know, it's my understanding that he can trap you if you want to live a certain way, and it's detestable before the Most High's eyes. He didn't have to provide you that warning. He could be like, I'm gonna send this dude to hell. And so and so when we're talking about condemnation to the lake of fire, when we're talking about condemnation to hell, there are people that are living, and so there are people that are living that in contrary to the Most High. I think everybody understands that. But the Most High is he's going to preserve some through. And when we come to verse 13, we see the Messiah. Okay, we see the Messiah.
Can I say this before you get to 13? How do you understand verse 10 when it says, and the books were open?
And the books were open. So this is where we're talking about. This is decision, right? This is decision. This is where this represents the Most High judging men by their deeds according to his law, and he's finding men to be preserved, and he's finding men to be condemned.
Okay, so how would this kind of be funneling through with kingdoms in the past?
Well, I'm just referring to verse 10 right now. I think that this is it says a fiery stream issued and came forth from him. Thousands ministered unto him, and 10,000 stood before him. The judgment was set, and the books were open. All right, so we're talking about judgment here. I don't know what else. What is it understood, or like, you know?
No, my question is that if you're saying that these four beasts in Daniel chapter 7 is referring to things in the past, how in the same chapter we see language here speaking of something that's way in our future of when he's doing this white throne judgment? This white throne judgment goes even after the millennium reign. I'm saying. So
that invites another discussion, and in your sort of you're making presumptions about the text. You're the like if you're going to test my argument, then like you can test my argument, but we may not have the same presumptions. So you want to be careful to not make presumptions that I'm not making. So if there's a disagreement about the understanding of the scripture, like feel free to ask, but like I'm just telling you my understanding of the scripture. Like whether we agree about white throne judgments, I mean, ultimately this is a different book. This is Daniel. It doesn't say white throne judgment. In Revelations, I believe isn't there 2 judgments in Revelation? So like, I mean, I think in all to sort of keep the conversation clean, like, I mean, feel free to make references back to Revelation, but like if we're going to like do a comparative discussion on Daniel 7 and between Daniel 7 and Revelation, I think that sort of complicates this discussion. I think maybe if anything, it should be done on a separate date. But what I'm saying is that this verse 10 represents the Most High's decision on like, on the remnant. You know what I mean?
Okay, well, the reason why I'm saying is that when you come to Revelations, the 13th chapter, and he sees this beast coming out of the sea, he sees a beast coming out the sea, and this beast is like a lion. It was like it had a lion. It was a leopard and a bear, and it says it has 10 horns, and it has 7 heads and 10 horns, right?
Mm.
So that beast in Revelations seems to be a correlation of all these 4 beasts here together in one.
Oh, well, I mean that's interesting. That's interesting. I might disagree. I'd like to review. To be able to provide more of a dialogue on that, but I obviously don't agree. Given my current understanding of Daniel 7, but feel free to inform your listeners. I can step back for a minute.
Yeah, I'm just saying why I'm saying that because again, verse 12 is clearly letting us know that at least 3 of these beasts is ruling at this down on earth at the same time. You know what I'm saying?
Okay, so in Daniel chapter 7, we have 4 beasts, but in Revelation 13, we find 1 beast with multiple heads. So already we see a different type of beast described.
No, it isn't different. In you seeing,
well, you say it's not different, but clearly there's 4 separate beasts that are not the same, that are not of one body in Daniel chapter 7, but in Revelations they're on one body, but they have different heads, right?
No, it said it has 7 heads and 10 horns.
Okay.
So,
what about the wings? What about the teeth? What
What about what? I'm saying that these beasts here are on the earth at the same time, and at some point the 4th beast, as it is described, clearly see that this 4th beast conquers the other 3 of them. He conquers all 3 of them, and he makes them a part of his empire, and that's why you see the 1 beast, and it has these characteristics of it, because he conquers them, and they become a part of his one world order, one world empire.
What scripture are you referring to right now? When you said
what scripture I'm referring to, as far as referring to what?
What chapter? What book? Like you just made a claim right now. What did you just say?
I'm referencing to Revelations, the 13th chapter.
Okay, what did you just say right now? You said that you really just sort of read an interpretation into a text, and I'm wondering which text are you reading into right now?
I'm not reading into. I'm saying Daniel chapter 7 verse 12 is letting us know that these beasts are on the earth at the same time. Okay. Daniel chapter 7 verse 7 is letting us know that 4th beast, he conquers the entire world. I mean, he conquered these other 3 beasts, these other three kingdoms, and he makes them a part of his kingdom. And that's why John is seeing one beast that has the characteristic of a bear, of a lion, and a leopard, because he has bring those other beasts or other empire into under his control, and they are now elements of his kingdom. That's why he sees elements of them within that one beast as John sees it.
Okay, so where where does it say that this fourth beast is subduing all the previous three beasts?
In Daniel chapter 7, verse 7, it says, "After this I saw in the night vision, and behold, a fourth beast, dreadful and terrible, and strong exceedingly, and it had great iron teeth. It devoured and brake in pieces, and stamped the residue with the feet of it, and it was diverse from all the other beasts that were before it, and it had 10 horns." So when it stomped the residue, he's talking about these other beasts.
Okay.
It stomped them out and take control.
Okay. And that's fine. Like that's fine. Like it's like if that's your take on it, that's perfectly fine. So in order, so if I can conclude my explanation, in verse 13, it says, "I saw in the night visions, and behold, one like the Son of Man came with the clouds of heaven, and came to the Ancient of Days, and they brought them near before him, and there was given him dominion and glory and a kingdom that all people, nations, and languages should serve him. And his dominion is an everlasting dominion which shall not pass away, and his kingdom shall not be destroyed." And we know by various other places in prophecy that this is the Messiah. Now, when I hear these two verses, I think of the man of the sea, or the man of the clouds, in Second Esdras. Okay, and so I don't know. Would you agree on that? Would you agree that this guy is the same guy spoken of in Second Esdras chapter 13?
No, I believe Second Esdras is faulty. That's not a reliable book to pull from. I see it as contradicting the Bible. So I don't look at that as anything that I would even personally myself, after I line it up with the Bible, it contradicts the Bible in so many places. I look at that book as off, flawed, real bad. I will never use it. I would never quote none from there.
That's fine. I think maybe there are some in your audience that might disagree. Maybe my point will resonate with them. And so okay, so whether you believe he is or not, so it's probably, it's neither here nor there really. Look, the point is that this is the messianic figure. Now, let me see. I'm trying to figure if I should. I'm trying to see if I should just wait till the end to just go forward. Let me see, because eventually, I think I'll just wait till the end to go forward, because what we eventually see is this messianic figure subdue the last of the beasts, and I think the last point we really sort of the dispute got a little bit hot was when I sort of made this indication that the fourth beast is Rome. And then there was this sort of question that Rome is not in power anymore. Rome fell. But so I'll wait until, because I'm pretty sure our discussion is eventually going to lead there, because that's where I have to conclude, you know. But I'll wait. Let's read 14 all the way to 28, and then
Okay, no problem. I think that what you had said about the Roman Empire was the last kingdom right before the Messiah's reign, and that was where the issue came in at, because I brought up to you that you had a uh, 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 you had a Arabic empire in the Ottoman Turks. The Ottoman Turks had an empire after, and so there's no way that the Roman Empire could have been the last empire before the Most High, before Christ came and reigned, because you had the Ottoman Turk Empire.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah,
So
we'll eventually get there. Yeah.
okay, all right, go ahead, brother. We're in verse 15.
One second.
Okay. No problem.
Verse 15. I, Daniel, was grieved in my spirit in the midst of my body, and the visions of my head troubled me.
Go ahead.
I came near until one of them that stood by and asked him the truth of all of this. So he told me and made me know the interpretation of these things.
Okay, so now we're gonna get the understanding of these things. Okay, well, at least to what exactly is going to be said. Go ahead.
These great beasts, which are four kings, which shall arise out of the earth.
So the first thing we are told here, that these four beasts, which are four, they are four kings which shall arise out of the earth. That's the first thing we are told, right? Go ahead.
But the saints of the Most High shall take the kingdom and possess the kingdom forever, even forever and ever.
So now he's referencing the saints, and we know that when the saints come and take the kingdom again, this is in our future again. Okay, and he's start off by speaking of these four beasts, that they are four kings, and then right after that he goes off into the saints taking the kingdom. So if you've hanging the events spoken of on a timeline, we see that these particular beasts, these four kings, as it says right here, once they're done, then we see then the saints take the kingdom right after that, as we speaking of here, as if we following what's being told to Daniel in a chronological order, right? Go ahead.
Verse 19. Then I would know the truth of the four beasts, which was diverse from all the others, exceeding dreadful, whose teeth were of iron, and his nails of brass, which devoured, break in pieces, and stamped the residue with his feet.
So Daniel here wants to know more about the last beast. You want to know about that one, okay? So now he's gonna dive into the last beast, the fourth beast, not the last beast. Excuse me, the fourth beast. Go ahead.
And of the 10 horns that were in his head, and of the other which came up, and before whom the 3 fell, even of that horn that had eyes, and the mouth that spake very great things, whose look was more stout than his fellows.
Go ahead.
I beheld, and the same horn made war with the saints, and prevailed against them.
So the first thing we told here about this horn is that he made war with the saints, and he prevailed against them. This is exactly what it says in Revelation, the 13th chapter, verse 7. It says the exact same thing there about this beast, which we know this horn is a beast, is identified as a beast in Daniel chapter 7, verse 11. And in Revelations chapter 13, verse 7, the beast there makes war with the saints and he overcomes them. So we see that the correlation here that fits perfectly with the book of Revelations of what's spoken here about this particular beast. So he made war with the saints and he prevailed against them. Go ahead.
Thus he said, the fourth beast shall be,
verse 22.
Until the Ancient of Days came, the judgment was given to the saints of the Most High. And the time came that the saints possessed the kingdom.
So then the Ancient of Days came and judgment was given to the saints. So I mean they was go ahead, was given their reward by the Most High. It says, and the time came that the saints should possess the kingdom. So this is clearly after these beasts here has had their time of rulership, then the saints is ruling after. It's clearly what is being explained to Daniel, what's going on here. Okay. After this particular horn make war with the saints, and he prevails over them. And then after that, there is an intervention here where the time came that the saints should possess the kingdom. So we see the timeline is matching up clearly that these beasts, when they're on the earth, right after their rulership, the next ones to rule after that is the saints. And again, it's another reason why I can't fit those in the past, because after their rulership, the saints did not rule after that at all. That didn't happen. I'm saying, but after these kingdoms here, obviously we see clearly that the saints is the next kingdom that rule, and we see an Ottoman Turk Empire that rule, I think, for 1,000 years, or almost 1,000 years, and then we see currently we have the British, and we have all these different wars and so on and so forth going on. A big gap since that time, and the saints have not ruled yet. Okay, go ahead, brother.
Verse 23. Thus said the fourth beast shall be the fourth kingdom upon the earth, which shall be diverse from all kingdoms, and shall devour the whole earth, and shall tread it down and break it into pieces.
So here in verse 23, as I was saying earlier about the fourth beast, that he conquered the rest of the beasts, this verse clearly tells you that this fourth beast is the fourth kingdom. It says, and shall devour the whole earth. He conquers the entire earth. He devours it. These other beasts that's there, he conquers them, because he's controlling the whole earth at this point, this fourth beast, and shall tread it down and break it in pieces. So this going back into what John saw as that one beast, having these other four beasts a part of it, making it a one world order. That beast, as I understand it, in Revelation chapter 13, is symbolizing of the one world order. All right. And we see that this beast right here, he's controlling the whole earth. He subdues the entire earth. All right. Go ahead.
And the 10 horns out of this kingdom are 10 kings that shall rise, and another shall rise after him, and he shall be diverse from the first, and he shall subdue the 3 kings.
So we see here is going back to this last beast. The 10 horns now is being explained as being 10 kings that shall arise in this particular kingdom. And then there shall be another that arise after those 10, and he shall be diverse from the first, and he shall subdue 3 of them. So we see, as the brother was bringing out, there is some degree of eternal fighting going on within this kingdom, within these 10 kings or 10 rulers in there, and one of them is going to subdue 3 of them. All right, go ahead.
And he shall speak great words against the Most High, and shall wear out the saints of the Most High, and think to change times and laws, and they shall be given into his hands until the time and times and the dividing of time.
So now we clearly see here that he's going to be speaking against the Most High. That's clearly what's speaking of the beast in Revelation 13 chapter. He's speaking against the Most High, and he's going to wear out the saints of the Most High, and he's going to think to change times and laws. So he's definitely going to definitely go against the Torah.
How that don't fit?
You're going to go. Hey, you got to mute, bro. We can hear you. You're going to try to change times and laws. Okay, you're going to adjust what the Most High's time clock and how he has things going to change the Torah. You're going to think to change those things, times and laws. It says, and they said, we're giving into his hand. It says, until a times, and dividing of time. So we know that a time is a year, times is 2 years, and a dividing of time is 50. Right? Is 50. So that's half. A dividing of time is not 50. Sorry, dividing of time is half. Dividing of half of the time. So that's 3.5. That's 3.5 years. It's saying here that they shall be given into his hand. It's the same timeline we see in Revelations 11:12 2 and 3, 12, 6 and 14, 13 and 5. The timeline fits perfectly here. So that's why I line up Daniel's with Revelations, because the things spoken of there, they fit together. They fit together perfectly. And the timeline here is what the exact timeline that's given in there is the exact time of when the Antichrist is going to be going or warring against the saints, and when he's going to be prevailing over them for 3.5 years, as it is spoken there in Revelation chapter 11, 12, and 13. All right. Go ahead, brother.
Verse 26. But the judgment shall sit, and they shall take away his dominion to consume and to destroy it until the end.
So the decree of the Most High shall sit, means shall stand, and they're going to take away the beast's dominion, and to consume and to destroy it unto the end. Go ahead.
And the kingdom and dominion and the greatness of the kingdom under the whole heaven shall be given to the people of the saints of the Most High, whose kingdom is an everlasting kingdom, and all dominions shall serve and obey him.
So once again, we see clearly after these 4 beasts is done with, and the beast and the little horn, which is a beast, once he gets stomped out and he gets taken out of power, the next ones to rule is the saints, with the most, Christ and the ones underneath them, the saints, under the order of Melchizedek. So we see that the timeline here fits perfectly again, while I'm arguing that those 4 beasts is in our future and not in the past. The last verse.
Hitherto is the end of the matter. As for me, Daniel, my cogitations?
Yes.
My cogitations much troubled me, and my countenance changed in me, but I kept the matter in my heart.
Okay, so now here too is the end of the matter. See, that's the end of it right there. So once the saints rule, that's basically kind of summing up, you know what I'm saying, the end of this particular matter here as is being told to him. But of course, Revelations kind of go into more about the different things after that, about the New Jerusalem coming down. But as far as these 4 beasts is concerned, the end of the matter is them coming out of power and the saints ruling. That's the end of the matter when it comes to these 4 beasts in the 7 chapters. With that, I'll turn it over to the brother.
I just have a question, and this is really going to sort of zero us in on what to call this 4th beast. When you see the verse where it says, "And he shall speak great words against the Most High, and shall wear out the saints of the Most High, and think to change times and laws," you're saying that the times and laws haven't been changed already? Are that what you're suggesting?
No, I'm saying that it says that this particular person is going to think to change times and laws.
So you think the times and laws that we have now haven't been already altered by someone?
Well, they have been altered for. Different cultures have different laws and different things. It depends on which laws and times is it referring to that he will think to change will be the question.
So when I think of times and laws, I think of our year, our calendar, thinking of our holy days, thinking of our holidays, we call them. But if we were to go to the Torah and look at Torah holidays, the Torah holidays, holy days, are that which are prescribed by Torah. But obviously, I think the majority of your believers would agree that times and laws have been changed.
What do you mean? Are you saying that you saying that the Most High's times and laws has been changed?
They have been changed by the beast. They have been so another set of times, seasons, and laws are have been enforced upon the people, right? So when we think of in history, pretty sure any one of your believers might be able to like reference this. I'm not looking in the chat section right now, but there was a time when Catholic popes, right? When Catholic popes started, that actually, who changed it? Was it Constantine the First? Was it? There's a point. Who instituted the Gregorian calendar? That was a Roman ruler, right?
Pope Gregory.
There it is. So, as far as the Gregorian calendar, as far as January, February, March, April, May, that hadn't always been. It was, and I think if we look at the various captivities, like we see some different things, but that's the one we have now. Like we have January, February, March. Half of our months are gods, names of gods, and then it seems like the other half has numbers in them, and the numbers don't coincide with the month. Like September, when you look at the word sept is 7. That's 7. When you look at October, oct is 8. When you look at November, that's 9. When you look at December, that's 10. That's decimal, decalogue, decathlon. That's 10, right? So how is it that we have the 7th month, a month named 7, September, in the 9th place, and October is in the 10th place? It seems like a perversion to me. And when we look at the seasons, we have winter. The seasons are off. The seasons like spring begins in March, and each month, each of the months are sort of split into seasons by 3s. We have March, April, May. I'm sorry, March. Yeah, am I right? March, April, May. That's spring. June, July, August. That's summer. And
okay, what I'm saying that
I'm not finished. You dig what I'm saying? Like, do you understand? Like, I understand. Like this is going to trigger you, because like when you start to think how much times and laws have been changed, like they've been changed already. When we look at our time structure, when we look at BC and AD, or now it's BC, I'm sorry, CE and BCE, like this is not how it's supposed to be. Like there's an actual time date, like a world year, and it doesn't coincide with 2021. Like we're not there, and I need like everyone to really sort of soak this in. Like you can look this up. Like it's things have already been changed. So when I point to verse 25, and I see times and laws changing, I'm already thinking Rome. Now I'm sorry. Maybe you wanted to provide some pushback on that.
I'm saying that the text is not saying what you're saying. The text specifically says he's gonna think to change it, not that he actually changed it. It's something to his mind that if I can think to fly, doesn't mean I actually fly. You know what I'm saying? It's saying he's gonna think to change time and law. The text does not tell us that he actually changed it. You're saying that it was actually changed. I'm saying the text says he's going to think to change times and laws, but literally has not that literally changed anything. Haven't changed it.
Okay.
If I'm wrong, correct me. Is that what the text is telling us?
I'm just like it's your program, and obviously like we have hard stances on this. I'm not really trying to make you change your mind. If that's what you're convinced about, then that's fine.
No, I'm asking you. Does the text says he's gonna think to change, not that he literally actually did it?
It says he will think to change times and laws, right?
Okay, so he didn't actually change it though.
I think we can see that times and laws have already been changed. So what he thought to do, he actually did. Now, whether the scripture says that's a different story, but like clearly, The world is not following Torah, and the tribulation is. Well, you don't believe in Second Esdras, but Second Esdras clearly tells us the tribulation is a scourge. It's sent as a scourge to correct the behavior of humanity.
Yeah, but the world has never followed Torah. I mean, point to me when everybody on the earth ever followed Torah. That has never happened. When did that ever happen in our history period? That has never happened. So
I'm not saying that it. I'm not saying that it did. But I'm saying that when we're reading Daniel chapter 7, like that's how Daniel sees it, because Daniel comes from a nation that was charged to keep with a certain set of times and laws, and for him it did change, right?
no, for him it didn't. I mean, what you mean? What you saying that Daniel was keeping pagan times and laws?
No. When he got his vision, that's what it meant to him. That when we're reading from Daniel's perspective, and we read that the ruler in the fourth beast was thought to change times and laws, I'm positing that is Rome, and I'm pointing back to history. I'm pointing back to how the Gregorian calendar was instituted. I'm pointing to that as evidence to make the connection.
Okay, I hear what you're saying, but my thing is that even though the Jews were dispersed abroad, they still kept the biblical feasts and times as best as they could wherever they were at. Because everywhere they went, we know that they took the copy of the Torah with them. They had a copy of Torah with them. Every time you find out a dispersion of a Jew somewhere, they had Torah with them. You know what I'm saying?
What's that supposed to mean, really? That Israelite.
That meant that they knew the times and the laws of the Most High, and that's what they was going by.
Yeah, but you have Israelites today. You know, we've all been following the Gregorian calendar for centuries, and many of us celebrate Easter and Valentine's Day and Mother's Day, Father's Day.
That's true because we lost our identity because we didn't know who we was. But once we found out we were Israelites,
exactly. Well, that's the point. That's my point.
Okay, so he changed times and laws because we lost our identity and we didn't know better, right?
He changed times and laws because he defied the Most High. It's a defiance. It's a defiance. Yeah, and so and if we continue to look at evidence, like Rome has subdued, the spirit of Rome has subdued the whole earth, right? Like we can't point to a figure, right? Like I can't point to like Jacob Rockefeller or somebody. I can't point to Pope Francis and say, oh, he calls himself Caesar. I can't do that, right? But I know that English as a language and Spanish and French dominate practically like most of the, like they're like lingua francas. They're widely spoken languages. If there's a reason why, if I go into China, I can see a Latin name. Like names are called after at least in our Western world. We like Indonesia. When I look at the various like even Roman scripts are widely, like we all write in Roman script, a whole so-called hemisphere, right? Like from North America to South America, we all write in Roman script. If we go into Africa, they write in Roman script. If we look at Africa just geographically, it's sociopolitically subdued by European countries that model themselves in the spirit of the Roman republics. There's lots of like evidence and signs that point like, no, with the New World Order or whatever world order has in power, they don't call themselves Rome, but you sure see a lot of Roman symbolism. You sure see a lot of eagles. You sure see a lot of coat of arms that harken back to the Roman Empire. I don't think they've forgotten about it. That's my point. And so, and these same European powers, they have subdued the earth. Like white people, white Europeans that descend from these old vestiges of the Roman Empire. Yeah, they're fragmented. Yeah, there's no solidified Roman Empire. But you look at, the Portuguese went everywhere. There's all these powers, all these former powers of the Roman languages. They, even Russia, you can hear like I can recognize. I don't speak Russian. I understand more Spanish than Russian, but when I listen to a Russian, when I listen to a Romanian, I can hear words that sound very familiar. And if I turn on closed captions, I'm like, oh snaps, I understood that. Like there's a spirit of Rome that is in sovereignty over the whole earth. And right now you see it sort of crumbling. The whole my where it sort of the waters get muddy is where does China fit into the mix? Because China, all of these countries, they sort of answer to the Pope, but China is really kind of like, even Russia, they have their own, like, they even recognize, I think even the Eastern Catholic, the Eastern Orthodox recognizes the what do you call it? They have like a universal jurisdiction or something like that, where it's like, okay, they call shots. And I might be mistaken, but maybe somebody can double check me on this. But I think even the Eastern Orthodox Church, they recognize the universal jurisdiction of the Holy See. I might be wrong on that, but if you can, you might be able to Google that. If I'm wrong, somebody, I'm not looking at the chat right now, but somebody can Google that, double check. But it's my understanding. I could be wrong though. But
all right. The link is in the chat. Anybody want to come on and ask a question to myself, to the brother? Something you want to you disagree on, something you want to add, something you think we missed, or whatever the case might be. Again, the link is in the chat. You can come on and ask any questions you want to ask. We passed the 2 hour mark, so I'm allowing. I know people in the chat saying different things and whatnot. This is your chance to come on and explain what you're saying, or what you think was brought out was missing something or incorrect about something. You know what I'm saying? So this is your chance to come on. So again, the link is in the chat. I'm just trying to go through the chat, see if there's any questions anyone was asking that we can probably touch on real quick. So I think basically we covered, me and you covered everything we was going to cover on together. So someone said I had a bad point. The terrible beast already had 10 horns, and they didn't come till later. I get what I mean. I understand. I mean, I'm a Thai Yahudim. If you still on here, you come explain that point. I mean, how did I make a bad point about the terrible beast already had 10 horns? I mean, I don't know what you're saying. When did I say it didn't have 10? I don't understand what your comment is about. I made a bad point. I don't get that. The 4 heads are predictive of the 4-way division of the empire following Alexander the Great death. Well, you're gonna have to come prove that. You know what I'm saying? Because the beast came out of the sea having 4 heads already. It didn't get 4 heads later. So I mean, you saying that's that's conjecture. You know what I'm saying? You have to show where that leopard didn't have 4 heads at the beginning and then it had 4 heads later, and that's why it doesn't fit. So I mean, I don't know how you trying to say that the 4 heads are predictive. I mean, that's what you call private interpretation. You're saying that. The text don't say that. The back of Alexander the Great horse was covered with leopard skin. Okay, I mean, all right, I can fact check that. I'm not going to dispute it and say it wasn't. I'll have to look into it and see. I'll have to look at it and see if that's true. think Daniel's vision of the ram and the goat gives further details of the second and third kingdom. Again, it's your chance to come on. You know what I'm saying? If you believe that, you have to come on. The question I'm gonna ask you, you're gonna have to show me where the Bible speaks of one kingdom by two different beasts. You're gonna have to show that in the text anywhere. That's what you're gonna have to show, because then that's where I will push back on that. Please, I can't control no dog. Whoever's saying do something with the dog. That's why I just muted my mic. So it never said that. So it never said it is what he is saying. I don't understand that. The leopard represents Cyrus, the Persian Empire. Okay. The leopard represents Cyrus, the Persian Empire. I don't think me or the brother would agree with that. I don't think we agree with that. The leopard he would agree would be the Greek Empire. And I agree is it's not. So you saying it's the Persian Empire? I don't know who would agree with that, Pastor Derek Clark. Again, you can come on. The link is in the chat. You can come on and show us why the leopard represents Cyrus the Persian. We can see that. The little horn represents Antiochus Epiphanes. Okay. I talked about that in the Maccabees. And Revelations 13:4, and they worship the dragon, which gave power to the beast, and worship the beast, saying, like who's like unto the beast, okay, and who's able to make war with him. We got that. So I guess nobody else want to come on. The link is in the chat. If no one's going to come on, I'm gonna get some closing words from my guest, and we're gonna shut it down. So again, I'm gonna give it a couple of more minutes for you to come on. And whoever was asking these questions and making these points, you have a chance to come on and ask me a question or the brother a question, or to prove your point you're saying in the chat. And if not, we're gonna shut it down. We don't drag it out any longer. I think everything that I was gonna say about it, I said. I think the brother said everything he was gonna say about it too. I just wanted to do the reason why I wanted to do the dialogue, because I remember last year, because I have to pull the clip up that the brother said that he wasn't ready for the dialogue at that time, and that's why I thought that maybe he was ready for a dialogue now. But as he said, he said everything he wanted to say last time. So I guess I kind of misunderstood it back then. If that what it was, I never would have brought it up. But I just thought that he was going to go back and then look at some things and then dialogue about it more. But I guess he's saying no. But I
think I may have made that remark due to we were talking about a connection between Islam and Rome. Islam and Rome, and there's some history there that I think people should be mindful of. First of all, I want to issue a correction. I just Googled it. It said the Eastern Orthodox does not recognize the primacy of the Catholic Pope due to the schism, and sensibly so. I just thought maybe there was an off chance that there was, which really kind of that's why sort of China and Russia are really kind of they're kind of different to me. They really they complicate the prophecy for me, because it's like, where do they fit in? But I do know that there's a connection between Russia and Europe, but there's also a connection. There's also a geographical and I think historical cultural connection between Russia and China. That whole, like, they're really part of one landmass. And if you really kind of take a look at the various peoples of the Russia and Central Asian region, you find some Chinese people that sound Russian, actually. If you go into like Kyrgyzstan and all those stands, you really start to see some things that are really kind of surprises. But I think going back to the point, I think where I sort of pulled the reins was explaining the connection between Islam and Catholicism. And man, there was a guy. Let me pull up. I can pull it up real quick on my phone so I can get his name. But there's a guy who did a video, and he explained all the similarities between, all the parallels between Islam and Catholicism. He talked about the history of, somebody may know his name in the chat, but I'll pull his name up right now if I could. But he talked about how Muhammad's wife was a Catholic, and how they created this religion, and Muhammad just kind of took it forward. Talks about how, I think their daughter named Fatima, she's like, Fatima is like, she's given tribute in the Catholic Church. And I talk about it. I made a video of our first discussion. And I made actually 2 videos in response. It's in Hebrew dialogue. If y'all go to the Rumble Room channel, it's Hebrew dialogues. This is pretty much the only Hebrew dialogues that I got on the channel. And then in Rumble Room Radio 9, I explain the details of everything that I was trying to explain now. And I include the name of the guy. So if you guys want to know the name of the guy, I won't really hustle to kind of get his name, but he has a video on YouTube. I named the guy in the actual video. So go and watch that video if you're interested. And he talks about I talk about how his daughter Fatima, she's given like a lot of credence. And I want to say, I haven't gone over this information in a long time, but what I explain in the video is that when I've traveled overseas, and when I went to Brazil, like in Brazil, they speak Portuguese. So they don't speak Spanish, right? So in like Spanish countries, you might see Maria, like Church of Maria, like Our Lady Maria or something like that. You might see Our Lady Maria in Catholic churches here. But in Brazil, I believe even in Portugal, they don't name Maria. Maria is not Maria. Maria is Fatima, or Fatima in Portuguese. And so Fatima is, from what I understand, from what this historian he says, I'm not sure. I don't think he's like a PhD. I think he's like sort of like a theologian, like informal historian. But he talks about how Fatima was the daughter of Muhammad, and so he makes various connections, and it goes back to, he makes various connections to sort of sun worship and moon worship, and he goes in between the 2 religions. It makes an interesting analysis. I don't want to hold this too much longer, but if you guys are interested, just check out Rumble Room Radio 9. I provide a lead to the video, my own little overview of the video. So yeah.
Okay, brother. I guess no one's gonna come on. I guess they just content with just commenting and having their own personal opinion. So with that, let me get some last words from you, brother. I want to thank you first of all for coming on, brother, having the discussion and dialogue with me in the first place. So I get some last words from you.
Oh yeah, no, it was a pleasure, most definitely. And I think dialogues like these, like, I'm not into the yelling. I'm not into the like we're all trying to figure this out. We're all one's personal beliefs is a very personal thing. We all have to live and die with what we believe, and we have to give an answer for what we believe. So when one sort of cleaves to their somebody off mute.
Oh.
So when somebody cleaves to their personal perspective, that's fine. I'm perfectly okay with letting them sort of go back and digest, and finding reasons why they disagree, finding reasons why they might agree. If their opinion changes, if it's modified, if they totally reject what I say, then that's fine. Like, and I think it's good for brothers like us to have read-throughs and dialogues, because this type of dialogue, it's good for the spirit to sort of like ruminate on. There's a lot of stuff that this evil world this evil empire, whatever you want to call it, that's ruling over the earth right now. There's a lot of distractions and a lot of stuff that we could be distracted by, but when there's dialogues like these, man, it's a good thing. And I think with brothers like us and Hebrews, like Hebrews modeling decorum and sort of like, you know, like I'm not here to twist your arm. I'm not here to subdue you and look like the number one guy. Like that's not what I'm about. Like the most beautiful thing that comes out of this is we challenge each other and we maintain respect. And then not only that, but we inspired others to do the same thing and and to conduct themselves the same way for other brothers to get together and say, you know what, I don't have to curse you out if you don't believe. I don't have to condemn. I don't have to damn you to hell and say the Most High is going to wipe you out with the rest of the two. Like it doesn't have to get to that point. Like we all, you know what I'm saying? Like, and like I respect your strength of reasoning, and I respect your ability to form your own opinions and to promote those ideas, you know, and whatever happens after that, whatever conviction happens between the Ruach, whether it's in regards to myself in the Ruach or regards to yourself in the Ruach, I think that's between you and the Ruach, and whatever happens between me and the Ruach is what happens between me and the Ruach, and whatever conviction and change that's supposed to happen, it'll happen. And if I come across some information, I'll be like, you know what, Ahmayan had a point. Ahmayan had a point. I'll come back and let you know, like, yo, thank you. You know what I mean? Because that's really what these dialogues should be about. It's really sharpening. It's not to conduct these sort of idols of these ivory towers, these idols in our own hearts to sort of boast and brag over them to other people, but it's really to sort of sharpen each other and say, you know what, that's a good point. You reasoned a very good point, and now I'm at 1 inch, 1 step, 1 yard closer to the truth. So that's why I didn't really mind. You know, there's always like reservations, like, man, like how's this gonna go? But like, you know, the spirit was like, man, just stick it in there and hope for the best. And like, if anything, you can inspire thought in others. But at the end of the day, like, you know, our brotherly love for one another, our respect as men for each other really should sort of like respect should reign supreme, you know, love, because that's love. Like I would never disrespect myself. The Bible says, you know, scripture say love your neighbor as yourself. So I don't want to get on here like trying to chop my own hand. I wouldn't try to cut my own hand. I wouldn't try to cut my own self, like to damage myself. You know, I may work out, you know what I'm saying? I run, and you know, I challenge myself. I challenge you, and so I obviously would expect the same thing from somebody else. But when brothers come on and like let things get out of hand, man, I'm not with all that, and I'm glad like things went the way they did. I thought it was a really good conversation, and you know, if you want to chat about anything else or revisit the topic anytime, man, like I don't mind coming back because that's really the coolest thing. The coolest thing about these dialogues is, you know, being able to dialogue and sharpen and challenge each other and promote thought and do it amongst the congregation, amongst the family, so that they can see, like, you know what, I can do the same thing, and it just allows a better vibe to spread, a better culture of reasoning and discussion, and a different type of understanding of what debate is in our community. So it was my pleasure. Thanks for inviting me on, and appreciate everything, man.
All right, thank you for that, brother. Definitely, I would agree with you. We need more dialogue like this in a peaceful format. You know what I'm saying? We ain't got to get out of order. The scripture say, let all things be done decently and in order. So that's priority. You know what I'm saying? So
most deaf.
Again, thank you for coming on. Yes, if in the future there's any dialogue you myself you might want to have with me, you can definitely reach out. We can have that dialogue. If I think of anything as well, you know what I'm saying?
Most deaf, man. Appreciate it.
Okay. All right, brother.
All right.
Okay.
All right. Shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Okay. All right. Shuri, you there? You on mute?
John.
All right, brother. Just some last words for the people, and we getting ready to close it out because no one seems to want to come on and ask a question. They just want to keep it in the chat. So it's on you, brother.
Well, all praises to the Most High and Mashiach for allowing me to be of service this evening. And blessings to everyone that came on for whatever capacity. Uh, blessings to Big Sal, Brother Gabar, definitely you, brother. Um, he. There were some areas that I felt he was very, very spot on with. Is that we are all on here for learning. No one man has all the information, and we got to keep remembering to die down to ourselves, which means our prideful natures, arrogant demeanors, because there's no learning that way. There's no if you're not listening, man, you're not learning. We're to remain humble at all times. I know it gets hard sometimes when discussions get heated. But at the end of the day, um, whether to agree or disagree, um, we have to dove back into being humble. You know, um, that should be foremost. That we're not doing this for ourselves. We're doing this for the Most High and our Mashiach through the Spirit. And so, anytime that we're dealing in slander, in backbiting, that's not working in the fruits of the Spirit, bro, for anybody. And so, um, to have an opinion is one thing, but if it's not harmonizing, then what's the point? You understand? You're learning for nothing. You're reading for nothing, and you're not helping to build the kingdom. You're tearing down. So, I think we should all evaluate our own selves and our own persons, so this way we can come to a collective whole as being a part of one body. It is about being a part of one body, that we all have something to contribute. No one is greater than the other. Um, what your drive in perfection of love, Salakia, what your drive is in perfection and love should be um, I don't know, man. It should just exude through you, just radiate off you. You know, we got to start showing more love toward one another, man. When we have these dialogues and debates, and so you get more flies with honey than you do with nonsense. So if if um, if I offended anyone by anything I've said today, I do apologize. Um, Thus, I'm not sorry because it's the truth, and we can't get the nation where it needs to be if we have all these indifferences. So these different platforms, man, I really hope and pray. I pray over you as I pray for myself. You know, that we can dialogue much differently and much more harmonizing. So that's it for me. Once again, brother, thank you for inviting me on. I love reading for you, and all praises for the next time that we meet, uh, if the Lord so will it. But thank you once again, Barakatah, Tada Rabah.
All right. Yeah, thank you, brother, for coming on reading for me. As usual, got to give all praises to the Most High, knowledge, wisdom, understanding, patience, with the entire creation. Things that he doing, and will continue to do for all of us until he sends Hamashiach to put things back in order until the time of reparation, time of getting things back together again, as the text tells us. So I want to give a shout out to my co-host, Brother Gabar, doing his thing. Shout out to Big Sal for the platform, the moderators on Debate Talk for You, everyone that came on, whatever you said in the chat, you know what I'm saying? So hopefully you learned something. There's some takeaway from here. You can use it to edify yourself, educate yourself on particulars of Daniel's chapter 7, Daniel's chapter 8, Revelations, and different things that was brought out. So with that, thank you guys for listening. Most are willing. I see you guys in the next show. And check out my brother Gabar. I think he's doing a show tomorrow. Tomorrow morning, I think it's 9 a.m. Pacific time. So check my brother Gabar out. Spiritual food, Sabbath meal. And with that, I would say Shabbat Shalom to everyone out there.